Hello, I'm out in the garage today doing some dyeing. And I've been meaning to film this, but when I get in my artistic kind of zone, I can't stop to do filming. So I'll try to pick up and catch you up onto where I am and give you some of the hints as what I've done. And I'm sorry I didn't take you along on the journey, but I just got in that zone. So let me set the camera up. I'll be right back to show you what I'm doing. Okay, this is what I've been working on today. And let me show you my idea piece. So I went online and I looked up tiger images. And this is the face that I fell for. I just love that face. And so here is what I have done. I first took a piece of prepared for dyeing, already soaked and dried from the soda ash, and I drew by pencil after looking at that image right there. And I'll be cutting this out and appliquing it onto the right dyed background when I get a chance. But I'm doing a batik, and this is a different kind of batik, and I'll tell you how. Alright, so what this is I drew on the fabric, then I came in and took a chanting, which is a traditional batik. You put wax in the hole and you use this little tip to draw the wax on the fabric. So I started out, after I drew it, started out waxing all the parts that are going to stay white. Then after I got all of those waxed, I did the eyes. Now I wanted the eyes to be special because, as you can see, they're a little different than what you would think. And I wanted to make sure I got the eyes right. So for the eyes, I decided, since finding a dye the right color would be tricky, I decided to use my Inktense fabric dye pencils. And I think I did a pretty good eye. I'm very happy with it. Right now you can't see the eye well because it's covered with a thick protective layer of wax. And that's to keep the dyes from sinking into what I've already done. If you didn't protect the individual colors with wax, they would be covered up by the next layer of dye. Instead of dipping this into a dye pot, I took paint brushes, sponge brushes, and applied the dye over the piece. It just gave me that extra control. So here is my lion, and there's brown underneath here, and I waxed over that. The slight pinkish I did of his nose, waxed over that. The last color I put on was the black dye, and I tried to make it very concentrated because it's supposed to be, see here, you can see when I wipe off the wax that white will come back. So I don't know until I have washed the wax out of it, the reveal as we say. And then what I'm going to do, before I put it on the background, I'm going to put an underlayment under it, and I'm going to do thread painting, because I think thread painting is the best way to get all the whisker type hairs. So I'm looking forward to decorating this with threads. I can get the realistic feel of fur. So that's how I started. And I started this yesterday doing the drawing. I got up this morning, I finished the drawing of it. Then upstairs, where I had really good light, I used a candle and the chanting and little bits and pieces. I put bits and pieces of wax inside, and then did the little intricate white areas. Then came downstairs. I have it on a metal pan. I've got my dye bottles here. I even made up some sodium alginate, which makes it very thick, and that way when I put that in the dye, it helps keep it from running too much. Now for my final black, I just put some of that into this cup and used a sponge brush and brushed it all over. What I'm going to get ready and do now is put this outside in the warmth and the sun and the humidity. We have a very high humidity. So I want to let this stay damp and let these colors really bond with the fabrics. Then after that, I will boil the fabric, put it in get a big pot, get it boiling, and then after that, I will plunge it into ice water so any remaining wax will just kind of crackle off. So let's hope that my tiger is going to come out good. I think either way I'm going to love it. Now there's a little area that I put wax on white that I shouldn't. It should have been brown. And I tried to scrape it off with my fingernail. If I run into an area that I accidentally put wax on, it should be a different color. I'm going to wait until I have boiled all the wax out, and then I'm going to use either permanent ink markers or my Inktense pencils and fill it in. Because, I mean, I love batik and I love the idea of it, but I'm not going to let it affect the success of this tiger, because I'm very excited to see what he looks like when he's all done. I even found this really cool pen and ink drawing on the internet, which will give me some great ideas for doing my thread painting. Alright, now I'm going to take and put him outside, and then I'll show you what else I've been working on. So I'm doing a batik, and I'm going to make a few changes to it, but I was working on this last night and I put it outside to cure, but unfortunately we got a heavy rainstorm. So I'm going to touch it up today, darken those dyes, and then finish this batik. So I just think it's really cute. In this case, I'm going to put wax across the entire surface when I'm done, and then crackle it, and then brush black dye over the whole thing. I think it'll give it a really great look. Alright, so now you can watch me put back on the colors. And this was the same technique. I drew on the prepared for dye fabric that had already been soaked in the soda ash, and then I drew my design, and then I took everything that was going to stay white, I took and used the chanting and put the wax on, and then proceeded with paintbrushes to brush my dye on. So I'm doing it a little different than immersion dyeing. I'm painting the dye on, but that's how I like it best. So here we go. I'm seeing too that I got a little bit of dye run in some of this green. So I'm going to go to my green dye first. Then I'm going to put in some of the alginate to thicken it. And then I'm going to put a little bit of water. How you make a lighter or darker dye is by the amount of water you put in it. And now I'm going to come back in and brush this, and hopefully the lines of wax will keep this green dye from running onto my pinks and blues. And I don't want this to be perfect. I don't want it to be too even. I want it to look fun. There is just such a happy, funny batik here. Alright. Everywhere I had green, time to do a little touch up. Very careful not to get it over onto the other parts. And I brought smaller paintbrushes if I need them. Okay. And what I'll do too is I can always come back, let this set up and come back and make it a little stronger, but I want the background to be fairly pale. Now I'll get another cup. I'm going to put some red dye. I'm going to use this full strength. I'm going to mix a little blue in it. Maybe even a little touch of brown. Okay. And let me get my cup of blue. Add a little blue. What I want to do is do this, a nice darker, kind of a burgundy color. Looking a little purple, so I'm going to come back in here and get a little bit more red. I have a feeling this will help. And remember, it's not going to dry quite as dark as it looks on here. So you kind of have to go a little darker than you think you want it. Okay. And if you don't want it to run, don't go up too close to the other colors. I'm going to put a little bit of this in his tail here. I think it's a pretty dark color. Love that color. I'll put a little bit of this on his face. Oops, I'm getting a little bit of running, and I think I'm just going to have to be happy with that. I'm not sure how much I can do about it. I didn't have that problem yesterday, but yesterday the fabric was dry. So, unfortunately, it's wet today, and I want to get it done before too much longer. I'm getting tired, a lot of dyeing. Okay. I'll just try to stay away from the other edges of the color. I think that'll help. That'll cut down on the amount of running. Yeah, that works. Okay. I think that's pretty good. All right, now I will put this cup aside. Squeeze as much of the ink off as I can. Now I'll get another cup. And I'll do some blue. I'll come in and go back over the blue areas of the cat that I had done. Okay. And I'll save these cups so I can darken the color as I get to that area. And now I need to get this, squeeze this off. And I think I will get some of the red / fuchsia. So I want a cup I'm going to put some of the alginate in it to thicken it and thin it. And then the nice thing about doing this part by paintbrush is I don't have to have my dye gloves on right now. And that's nice. My hands get hot in those dye gloves. To get this purple, I'm going to have to come back over it with a little touch of blue. So it's a good thing I didn't throw that away, isn't it? Alright. Yeah, I like these colors better now. Okay, put that aside. Now I think I will go back to the blue. And get a little of this purple going. Right here. Right. Today it's wet, so it's starting to run.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know what to do about that.
well, what are you're painting it more, or you're dyeing
Yeah, the rain washed it out.
I thought it wasn't supposed to do that.
Really pale. It ended up washing it out so pale. It was all, you know. But unfortunately, I started when it was dry. Now it's running a little. But
Well, it'll be, what do you call it? Avant-garde.
is that what you call it? A little Pollock-esque. Okay. So now I'll come in with yellow. Put some more alginate in it. And you can find all these supplies at the dye store. I like to get mine from Dharma. I know there are other companies out there, so I've got to come back with a little green. I just noticed that space behind his tail. And what's beautiful about these, what's so cute about these kitties, is how the colors tend to run from one to the other. I like the fact that these colors blend. Okay, I'll come back in here with a little green. There, that's good. That is just so cute. Alright, so now I'm going to turn the palette around and see if I can paint the top part. I'm going to turn the palette around and paint the top part. I tell you what, I liked making it better yesterday when it was dry, the fabric was dry, and it didn't run so much. I'm not enjoying the running. I wish I'd been more patient today and taken my time so it didn't run. Alright. So I'm going to get blue and put sodium alginate in it, more, and a little more water. So I can get a nice pale blue on the sky. I wanted to see if I could pull a little bit of the purple off into the sky. It did that yesterday and I really liked it. Little striations. Then I'm going to come back over here, make this cloud a little dark. Because that's, I think, what this is supposed to be, is a little cloud. Alright. I like it, I like it. I think it's right cute. I wish it wouldn't run. That tells me to be more patient next time. I wonder if I can get a little bit of bleach to take out that color. I'll figure out. Worst comes to worst, I will cut it out and applique it onto a different background. Okay, now I'm going to set this up in front of the fan to dry. And then I'll put the wax on it and do the batik. Alright, now I'm going to do some regular dyeing as soon as I get my stuff set up. Okay, now what I'm doing is I have some fabric I just bought for backing that's white with a black pattern on it, and I'm going to do what's called over dyeing. And then on this fabric it has a white on white, a dotted little wandering pattern. So I am now going to dye these, and I'll show you how easy it is to do these dyes. They've been soaking overnight in a bucket of soda ash, and now I'm going to put the dyes in them. So on these two, I know they're both going to be yellows. So in the first one, I'm going to make it a very pale yellow. The next one I want to make a stronger yellow, so I'll put a little bit of water and a lot more yellow. The first one, I'm going to make my black and white over dye. I'll make red. I'm putting straight dye on that. The next one, I'm going to make orange. So I'll put half yellow, half red I mean, and half yellow. Because I'm just going to do a rainbow effect. And this, let me put a little more yellow. Whoops, I just dropped. Be careful with your dyes. This should come out orange. Alright. Then I'll go ahead while I'm here and do my green. And I'll dye this one to green. This is why I do this in the garage. It is a messy process. Alright, so red, orange, these two are yellow. I need to make a yellow. I'll need to make a yellow in here. I'm going to put straight yellow on. So with that fabric, I want it to be strong. So red, orange, yellow, green. Then we'll do blue. And I have my cup of blue. Let me add a touch more water. Not much, because I want it to be pretty strong. Okay, then I'll put a touch more water in this to make my purple. I want half red and half, let me find my other, there's my other blue, half blue. I think I might need a little touch more red. Let me grab my red. Alright, then I'll pull my gloves on. what I'm going to do is kind of massage the colors to get the dye all worked in through. I like to blow air in the gloves first because it's hard to get them on when they're stuck together. Alright, so I'll just go in here and massage, move the fabric all around. Move the fabric all around. And this won't be a solid color. I love my fabrics a little modelly. So, if you wanted a solid color, you'd have to have more water in it and really swish it through. So now, this will stack up and go outside in the warmth. Now I'll move to my next, making sure my gloves are clean. Coming into the next one, and this is the solid blue. So to over dye these, what I did first is I washed them to get out all the sizing and chemicals that came with them through their manufacturing process, and then soaked them overnight in soda ash, which neutralizes the fabric and allows the dye to just set right in. Okay, because as you'll notice, if it's folded too tightly, the dye can't get into all of the crevices. And that's okay. I mean, I don't mind that. Like I say, I like it modeled. I like it more interesting. I mean, if I were going to just dye solids, I might as well go buy them and save all the work and the expense, because you pay just as much for this fabric as you do Kona solids. The reason you dye it yourself is to get more interest, to get something interesting. So now, but since I've really gotten a new paper towel and my hands are very clean, I'm going to go straight to the yellows because I don't want to introduce all the other colors to the yellows. So, just going to make sure it's bent out, it's sopping up all the fabric. Because even though I want it mottled, I still want it predominantly a strong color. Now since I did yellow, I'm going to go ahead and do the next yellow and then the next one. But I'll start with the light one first. And I see that this got a drop of the red, but that's okay. I'll cut around that. This had plenty of dye in it. These are bigger pieces of fabric, so they're a little trickier to get the dye worked all the way through. But remember how I said that I'm short on yellow fabric. So I thought, well, let's make some. And I know what color yellows I love best, so that's easy. I like bright lemon yellows, butter yellows. I'm not that much of a gold person, so I love the yellows. All right, and as you can tell, it's a lot deeper. So let me wipe off my hands, get the lids on, get these ready. And they're going to do what's called batching, where they just sit and let the chemical reaction happen that makes the fabrics. Because this dye color, this is a Procyon dye, and it actually gets into the fibers itself. And that's why I like these. Procyon, and you don't have to boil these to get the dye to work, which is awfully nice. I don't have all the stuff to do that. You just need good soda ash to pre-soak the fabric in. And I may put some salt. I'm not sure if I need to when I go to rinse these off. Alright, so that's that. Now I can get some more paper towels. Let's move on to green. Soda ash you can get from the Dharma, or you can go to a pool store, and it's called pH Up, and it helps. You know, if you've ever been into a pool and it burns your eyes, most likely it's not from the chlorine, it's from the pH being off. So they carry soda ash, sodium carbonate, and sodium carbonate brings the pH to neutral, but it also has the chemical reaction with these dyes in fabric that it helps the fabric take the color right in to the fibers. And Procyon dyes only work with natural fibers. Like, it won't work with wool. You have to get a different product to work with wool. I mean, wool is natural, but wool is an animal fiber. This works with plant-based fibers. Now, this orange is a little strong, so let me get some more yellow, because I want it to be a definite orange, not a reddish orange. So let me mix this all in now. Oh yeah, that's much better. This has plenty of extra, so I'm going to pour this off. Now, sometimes once you have mixed the dye in with fabric that had been soaked in soda ash, the soda ash also can stop the dyeing process after a certain length of time. So I save all these little bits of dye and then take some fabric. Maybe I don't like the way it turned out. Throw all of let me put a little bit more red in this. Hold on. Here's red. I try not to waste anything, but I will take a fabric and pour all the leftover bits in a tub with the fabric and just see what comes out. You never know. And remember, if from this dyeing session, if anything I have, I really don't like it, just save it for my next dye session. You can always over dye fabric. You would be surprised the things you can do with it. You can take an ugly fabric and really turn it beautiful. Oh. Alright, so I got this all worked through. Yeah, see, there's a part here that's like pink. So I just work it all through. And I'll go outside, put these outside the door and batch these. And then I'll come back and see what we're going to do now. Alright, get that dye color out of the way. I'll be back. Okay, so now what I'm doing is ice dyeing. And I have put these fabrics in different configurations. Now some people do this with dry powder dye, but since you're not supposed to breathe it in, I'd rather not. Plus I've got a bunch of dye already mixed up. And we've got plenty of ice. You just pile the ice on. I kind of hope it stays on the fabric. But you pile the ice on. Let me come back when I've got the fabric covered with ice. Okay, so the fabrics are pretty well covered with ice. And that was a very cold job. My hands are cold. All right. So now what I'm going to do is take the dye and pour it on the ice. And you decide what colors and how much and where. It's kind of fun, like being a kid. You just sprinkle the dye on top. And finish up with some blue. This is important to do this outside because it does get a few places. All right. So you just leave it out here in the warmth, in the sun if you have some, and let it work into the fabric. As it melts, it'll let that dye drip right down into the fabric. All right, we'll check it out later. So here are my tiger, all my fabrics batching up, and then the ice dye. This type of dyeing is a kind of controlled dyeing where you're looking for interesting background fabrics. Maybe landscape fabrics. You figure out what you want to pour and where. experiment. Dyeing is not very controlled and you never know how it's going to turn out. Now take this out and let this batch for a while. Here is my tiger after I boiled him and then I enhanced the colors and his eyes with Inktense pencils. Alright, so I've got my inspiration tiger up on my screen as I'm doing the thread painting, because you can see certain areas are darker, certain areas are lighter, certain areas it's not as sharp a delineation, and so I constantly refer to this as I'm thread painting. One thing I found is I did a zigzag where I wanted to start my edge, and then I did a zigzag along this edge and along the ear where it's white. It's too hard to do a free motion tiny short stitch, but this also lets me know. I was noticing while I was thread painting I didn't quite know where to stop and start, and having this zigzag really made it easy for me. Here I needed a sharp line. Here I'm going to kind of loosen it up, fuzz it up just a touch. But this is the reason I want to show you this. I found this out by trial and error. I've done thread painting before, but I've never really taken a class in it or been taught how to do it. I've just found my own ways. With this tiger, I'm working very hard to do straight stitches to mimic the fur he has. And I'm finding it's a lot more enjoyable than I thought it would be. So now I'm going to show you. I've just got a straight stitch. My feed dogs are up. I liked having that tension help me pull back and forth. When I put the feed dogs down, I find it feels like it's all floating all over the place. So this works for me. So let me show you one thing I've found. Believe it or not, I'm going to stitch back off the fabric and back on the fabric, and it works. So let me just show you here. I end up going at a pretty fast pace, and I just pull it back and forth. That's why I have to use both my hands. And then every once in a while, to make it look more natural, I just allow the thread to go past the zigzag line. And I just decide how opaque I want it to be, or do I want to let some of the black show through. But what you'll notice is with that zigzag, it really helps me figure out how far to go up. And then you'll notice, see how I'm going off the fabric? I was shocked you could do that. I thought I would be all tangled. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was trying to do it the other way, and it was really making a mess of it, because trying to start off and on the edge was bunching it up and tearing it. But this way, letting it go off the edge on the other end is actually so easy. So I just felt like that this was the best way to show you what I was doing. And it's just a matter of keeping your stitches pretty close together. Every once in a while, reconfigure your hands. And and it's actually been easy and enjoyable. You just pull back and forth. Now, if you could loosen the presser feet tension, then you probably could. But I don't like to drop mine altogether. I like to have that little bit of stabilization that the feed dogs give it. All right, so I just thought I'd show you. I've got this much left to go, and I'm just going to continue on. But I thought it was better for you to see this than for me to try to explain it. Here is the teeth that you saw me working on earlier in this video. Well, I was impatient. I didn't want to wait and let it dry, so I started working on it wet, thinking I could control the color bleed. But as you see, I couldn't. It started becoming a mess. No matter what I did, it didn't help. So guess what I did? I started all over again. Sometimes you just have to. And now I'm so much happier with this. What I did is instead of using a wax resist, which I found a little difficult and a little hard on my asthma, I used the Elmer School gel glue and it worked wonderfully. Now, if you want to use a really fine line, I recommend you getting a tiny squeeze bottle with a metal tip. But this worked really good. I put it everywhere that I wanted it to stay white, and then I let it dry really good. Then I used ink tints, pencils, and blocks and filled it in and painted it with brushes using a textile medium, and it worked really well. I was able to control the colors. As you see there, I got very little, if any, bleeding. It worked beautifully. And I had to go over it several times to get the intensity of color I wanted. So I highly recommend this. For me, this is what works. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it after this before I quilt it, but I'll see. And I'm getting ready to show you the medium that I used, because if you use water, it tends to run. So this is a Chromacraft, and it's a textile medium I bought from Amazon a couple years ago. I keep it in a plastic bag to keep it from drying out. So I am very, very pleased with this now, and for me, it was worth doing it all over again. Okay. This is a background that I worked on the other day for my tiger. Here's the tiger. I showed you that I had been thread painting it, and I've still just done the one half of his face, and I will go back and do the other half of his face. But then I thought he needed a background to go on, and so I did a jungle setting with bamboo leaves and tropical plants. What I'm going to end up doing is doing leaves that hang a little bit over his face to make it look like he's peeking out of the jungle at you. So I did this with a plain piece of fabric and ink tints, dye blocks, and pencils, and the fabric medium. And I experimented with dyeing some fabrics to be a background, maybe for a landscape. And I tried to do the blue here would be the sky, then maybe some sun, clouds. And these other pieces are the ones that you saw me doing where I folded up the fabric and just kind of sloshed the dye across the folds of fabric and then did some spotting and stuff with some of the colors. But this was just a good experiment to see how would this come out. If I don't like them, I can always over dye them. Here are some that I did to be either sky or undersea backgrounds. And you can see I put some green down on the bottom. This one I liked a lot. I'm not sure exactly whether that would be some sun coming through the water or above, not maybe not underwater, but maybe a sunset over the water. So I'm not sure how I'll use these yet. Here's another one. You can see the lines where I folded it up and this just scattered the dye across. Anywhere that I don't like, I'll just over dye it. I'll do it again. That's the beauty of doing your own dyeing. This is the first of my ice dyeing fabrics. And oh my gosh, I am so happy with every one of my ice dye fabrics. I think I'm going to spend more time in the future doing this. I don't think you can get any prettier. I did several, I gathered them up like an accordion pleat. Some I did a zigzag, some I did a coil. I did different shapes and then stacked the ice on top and then the dye over the ice. That's what I consider ice dyeing, and that's how you get these amazing, amazing patterns in this fabric. The distribution of the colors. I mean, this is just exquisite. I can't imagine anything prettier. But I love ice dyeing. Here's another one of my ice dyeing. This one I think I did an all over scrunch. You can kind of tell by the way the colors are dispersed. A little more pastel. This is an ice dyeing. I think I did the coil when I wrapped the pleats like a round coil, like a snake. Well, actually, no, like a round snake coiled up. And I love the bands of color and the patterns. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy with this. And then once I did these, I brought them in the sink, rinsed them till the dye slowed down, then put them all in the washing machine together and washed them. This is my very favorite ice dyeing. It looks like an explosion of flower blossoms. And I don't know if I'm going to cut this up or just use it as a whole cloth quilt and use thread painting to outline the little flower shapes I see. But that is just the prettiest thing I've ever seen. And you never know how it's going to come out. Isn't that amazing? I love ice dyeing. That's my favorite method. Here are the fabrics that I over dyed. I've got purple, and this is the fabric. I got it as a backing fabric because it was so inexpensive, and I washed it with a good detergent to clean off any sizings or any chemicals on the fabric. Then I soaked it in soda ash and then dyed it. The yellow came out beautifully. Isn't that nice fabric? And I love the over dyeing. Now this was supposed to be green, so somehow the yellow wasn't working in that green. So sometimes if the dyes, it's better to dye right after you've mixed the dyes, because they do have a shelf life, and if soda ash fabric gets in the main dye, what's left is most likely going to come out different than you expect. Soda ash tends to stop the dyeing process after a few hours. Here is a nice turquoise blue. I think that came out pretty good. And then here's my orange. Now remember, I had a hard time trying to get the right amount of yellow, but I like this. I like all the different I like the marbling in this, the different colors of the red and the yellow, and so it contributed to dark orange, light orange, and almost a yellow orange. So I like that. But I did have a fail on this fabric. So somehow the dye was just too close to having expended everything it had. So I will be redoing this one. It was a fuchsia dye that I was using, and I must have gotten some soda ash in it somehow. Something went wrong, or I didn't put enough of it in. That could well be it. And by the time, remember, I put the dyes in the container and then took my time to mix them up, and so it might have been that by the time this was mixing up, it had lost everything. So I will be doing this again. These two I will be doing again, but I'm very pleased with the others. This is the end of my dyeing. I will be doing some more and making another video probably next summer But I hope you enjoyed it and saw that, you know, you can take white fabric and do some amazing things with it. And it's a lot of fun. Thank you for tuning in. This is Deb Johnson for Our Time to Quilt.